Welcome, loves. This isn't a quick fix video. This is going to be a grounded conversation on anxiety, our nervous systems, and how we can work with herbs to help to heal anxiety, chronic stress, and panic attacks over time. I'm going to share with you a little bit about my journey of healing from really debilitating panic attacks and anxiety. And I'm also going to share with you a background on our nervous systems and stress so that you can really understand what's happening in your body and what our bodies are trying to tell us. And then we're going to go into some different herbs for working with stress and anxiety and panic attacks and understanding which herbs you use based on what you're navigating, what kind of anxiety and stress you are experiencing. And then we're going to make two herbal, nourishing anxiety and stress relief lattes together so that you can have some of these medicines that you can start to incorporate in your daily life right after this video. And as we talk about somatics and our nervous systems, what I'm really wanting to provide you with in this video is for you to really feel clear and grounded on your next steps of all of the choices that you have and what you can do to start to really heal your body, your nervous system, and this anxiety and panic attacks. I just really want you to know, love, that this is not forever and you do not have to feel this way forever. I promise you, if I could get through the debilitating anxiety I experienced, I know that you can get through it too, and I'm here to help you do that. I want to be clear that this isn't about forcing yourself off medication or pushing yourself really hard to do something. It's really about starting to understand how the nervous system works and how we can actually listen to these signs from our body so that we can heal the underlying causes of the anxiety and panic and stress that are happening in our body instead of just suppressing and managing symptoms. This is going to be a kind of long and informative video, so make sure you get your blanket, get your tea, or whatever helps you to feel cozy and nourished and comfortable in this space. Get your journal so that you can take notes, and save this video so that you can keep coming back to it and continue to learn. It's going to be really dense, so this is definitely something that you can come back to over and over again to access the information. So by the end of this video, you're going to be able to understand why anxiety happens, how to work with it instead of fighting it, and which herbs might be right for your body. 10 years ago, I had an abortion that almost took my life. I lost too much blood, I passed out, and I had to be rushed to the hospital. A year after that, I got pregnant again with my third child. And during this pregnancy, anytime my body would start to feel a little bit dizzy or a little bit fainty or a little bit shaky, my body would automatically go into panic attacks. And I had never had a panic attack before, so I didn't know what was happening. After I gave birth to my daughter, I had the most debilitating anxiety. It impacted every single aspect of my day, and I had absolutely no control over my body. I would have panic and anxiety attacks all the time. I wouldn't know why they were happening or what triggered them. I would be running and trying to do all of this stuff to make it go away, and I couldn't figure out what was happening. I was unable to drive, and I was just completely debilitated. It really took over so much of my life. And I felt so much grief because I felt like I was missing out on really being able to be present with my children and to enjoy life. Like, I couldn't live life inside of my body because I had so much anxiety and it was so painful. And so I began searching, not just for symptom relief, but for true healing. And, I have a background in somatics and trauma healing and herbalism and sound healing and all of these different modalities. And this is prior to me studying or practicing somatics, and this is actually why I got into the study of somatics through my own healing journey. So I started searching for help, and I found a therapist, and I decided at that time that I was going to go on a really low dose of Zoloft. And for me, my body has always been extremely sensitive to pharmaceuticals, and so one of my concerns was that I didn't want to suppress what I was feeling and then end up with all of these other other side effects, like not being able to enjoy life or all different kinds of things. And so what I decided to do was go on a really low dose of Zoloft, enough to take the edge off of the anxiety so that I would be able to use the energy that I had to start learning about trauma, learning about somatics, learning about how to regulate my nervous system and move through anxiety and panic attacks, so that as I was developing these tools and skills over time, I could eventually wean off the medication once I got to a place where I felt like I had new tools that could support me. So there's often 3 medication pathways that people usually take when trying to manage panic attacks and anxiety and things like this. And there's really no judgment on any of these paths. We live in a culture that can be really shaming. And so what I really want for you is to really practice not shaming yourself, just knowing that whichever path you choose is so valid and is going to be so right for you. And that's all that matters. All that matters is that you are supported in what you need to be well. So the 3 meditation pathways that we often see, the first path is that when people are using anxiety medications to stop or reduce or to suppress the symptoms. And then that's all they're doing. They're just like, I just want to suppress this and go on with my life. Completely valid. And that is really the first step. The second medication pathway is the one that I chose to take, which is you are taking a medication, and that not being the end of your journey, but you're taking this medication so that it can take the edge and the anxiety down enough that you can actually engage in learning new skills and learning new practices, working with herbs, learning different things that you can do to start to listen to your body and heal your nervous system. And then the third pathway, which is also kind of like a step, is the weaning off of medications and just working with herbs, somatic practice, trauma therapy, and other ways to regulate your nervous system and care for your body. And that's really where I am now on my journey. And that's, I think, where, if you're watching this video, I'm assuming that's where you most likely are wanting to be. And that's what I want to support you in. But really, any of these paths are going to work for different people based on where they are, and they're all valid. So one of the things that I really want to emphasize around weaning off or taking a low dose of a medication with the intention to wean off of it while you're learning new practices. One of the reasons that this is so important and why it can be really harmful to just cold turkey quit medications if you're on medications is because in order for our bodies to learn new skills, they can't be in survival mode. We can't learn in survival mode because the creative learning part of our brain actually shuts down so that we can focus on protecting ourselves and keeping ourselves safe. And so if we're in this heightened state of anxiety, we quit our medications cold turkey and we're just trying to like muscle through it, our brains and our bodies actually aren't able to open up to actually take in the information and to actually learn. So this is why I really emphasize in my work and with the people I work with a slow, thoughtful, present, and gentle approach. Because when you take this type of approach, what happens is that you will be able to experience long-term sustainable healing in your body. And that's really important. So when we're weaning off these medications, what's happening is we are still having them in our systems to help to like tamper down that anxiety, that flight energy. And we're also bringing in new practices that are helping our bodies to start to feel settled and more safe, and starting to open the sides of our brain that are creative and are open to learning and open to connection so that we can actually absorb information and new practices over time. And then as we're able to do that, we can slowly wean off the medications and eventually our bodies will get to a place where they don't need them anymore. So now we're going to talk a little bit about what anxiety actually is. Anxiety is part of our body's built-in safety and danger system. And it's actually a really important part of our body that helps to keep us safe and to keep us alive. It lives in what we call the autonomic nervous system, but we can really call this the fight, flight, freeze system to really help us make sense of what that means. This is the part of your body that automatically reacts to danger as soon as it senses it to try and keep your body safe. So for example, imagine that you're in the woods and you're walking and then a tree branch falls in the forest behind you and you hear it. And your body just automatically kind of like jumps up and gets this rush of energy. But then once your body registers like, oh, that was a tree branch far away, I'm fine, I'm safe, that energy goes back down and your nervous system re-regulates, and then you keep on walking. That little burst of energy is what we are calling anxiety. So that anxiety energy is something that we experience all the time. So this is the energy that actually activates our body and allows us to sit or stand up, to get out of bed, to wake up. It's our energy of awakening. The issue with anxiety is when it becomes chronic. So you're in the forest, you're walking, that tree branch falls on the ground, your senses go up, you have that rush of energy, and then it doesn't come down, it just stays up for years and years and years. This is where the issue is, because anxious energy is supposed to go up and down and up and down and go up and then resolve. But the issue is once that energy stays up, it's chronic and it doesn't go back down. And so we're in a constant state of anxiety and fear, which is really bad for our bodies. And so the reason that I wanted to share that example with you is because oftentimes when we experience anxiety, debilitating anxiety, chronic or generalized anxiety, panic attacks, burnout, chronic stress, what often happens for us is that it's so painful and debilitating and hard to live with that we often want to just make it go away and we want to get rid of it and we hate it. But it's really important for us to understand that it's not actually the anxiety that we need to get rid of, that this is actually an important part of our body functioning in a healthy way. It's just that we need to recalibrate our nervous systems, re-regulate our nervous systems, and balance our body so that that sensation, that feeling of anxiety isn't controlling our entire lives. And so that it's mostly happening in those moments when we need that energy to happen, and that it's not chronically stuck on and taking over our entire lives. So one of the first tools I want to talk about when we're working with anxiety is resilience. This is one of the foundational tools that really determines our ability to manage, navigate, move through, overcome anxiety and panic attacks and things like these. And one of the major ways that we cultivate resilience is through our early childhood by having healthy, present, regulated caregivers and parents and community and family. And I'm sure you're thinking, well, I didn't have that. Yeah, probably like 99 to probably 100% of people, especially in our culture, did not have that. And so that impacts our body's ability to be resilient, to move through challenging situations and to rebalance ourselves. But one of the other important things to know about resilience is that we can engage in practices and community, and we can actually cultivate resilience as adults through building healthy relationships with other people, building healthy grounding relationships with non-human people, with the land, with trees, with plants, with herbs, with animals, with stones, with all of the beings of the land, through learning somatic practices and trauma healing and being involved in activities that bring us a sense of joy and safety and connection. All of these things increase our resilience. And so to help you understand how resilience works a little bit, I want you to imagine that you have a tiny pot on the stove. And in this tiny pot, you have 2 pounds of carrots. And they don't fit. So you shove them all in there and you try to boil these carrots, and the water's overflowing and it's spilling all over the place, and these carrots aren't cooking. So in this analogy, really the carrots are the anxiety and the pot is us. And so the pound of carrots is too much. It's overthrowing our whole entire systems. It's taking over our lives, and our bodies literally can't hold all of those carrots. They just can't do it. So healing anxiety isn't about throwing the carrots away or shrinking the carrots, because if we just throw the carrots away, then we won't have these carrots that we're trying to cook and boil. What we actually need is a bigger pot. We get a bigger pot, we add more water, we put that same amount of carrots in. Now all of a sudden in our big pot, these carrots don't take up very much space, and we can boil them and we can cook them and we can work with them. And so this is kind of like what's happening when we're cultivating resilience, is we're not getting rid of our past. We're not getting rid of the experiences that we had. We're actually increasing our body's ability to hold these experiences in a way that doesn't overwhelm our nervous system, so that we actually have more capacity to feel grief, to feel sadness, to feel anxiety sometimes, but it doesn't overtake our entire body and life and feel so scary and unmanageable. And so this resilience, this is really what we're cultivating on this channel. This is really the purpose of this channel, and why I'm creating this space is for us to essentially build the somatic medicine bag where we have the tools and the skills that we need to navigate these experiences and increase our resilience, increase our body's ability to heal and regenerate, and to live lives that feel joyful and nourishing and fulfilling to us. So next we're going to talk about holistic healing and the herbal medicine spectrum. We're going to talk about some different categories of herbs to work with for anxiety based on the different kinds of anxiety that you might be experiencing. And then we're going to go into making 2 herbal lattes. And I'll say that one of the reasons that I love making herbal lattes is that I believe medicine should nourishing, it should be delicious, it should be juicy, it should bring you joy. So I love to turn all of my herbal medicines mostly into lattes or other things that are really just beautiful, so that you're receiving this medicine and it tastes good and it makes you want to drink it. Okay, let's talk about the healing herbal medicinal spectrum. So medicine in general exists on a spectrum, and it goes from food all the way down to pharmaceuticals. And there's all of these different gradients in between. And this is how, in the herbal world and just in life in general, we can really start to make sense of how much risk is involved in the different things that we are consuming. A lot of times people think that because herbs are plants that grow in the ground, that they're completely safe and you could just take a handful and use that, but that's not actually true, because they exist on this spectrum. So all the way on one end of the spectrum, we have food. So this is what most everybody is familiar with, because we all eat food. Food is generally the safest form of medicine, and this is the place that our ancestors often worked with medicine. They used their food as medicine, and they had very particular ways that they would cook and process food so that they could extract certain minerals and nutrients and all kinds of things to absorb in our bodies to heal our bodies. So food, which is generally the safest way to access medicines, and when we, in the future, I'll also share with you different practices for working with food as medicine. For example, fermenting foods. There's a reason our ancestors were fermenting their foods, or slow cooking their foods, or using fat in their foods to extract fat-soluble vitamins. Like, there's all these different ways that we can deepen our relationship with food so that our food really functions as medicine. And food is one of the ways that our body absorbs nutrients the best, so it's one of the most potent ways to work with medicine. So that's the first one, is food. Next on the spectrum is nutritive herbs. So these are herbs that are generally mostly safe for all people, and they are really high in a lot of really important vitamins and minerals, much higher than supplements that we take, but they're closer to food on the spectrum. So for example, you could think of things like dandelion root and burdock root, ginger, some of these different kinds of things. Next, we have adaptogens. Adaptogens are really good for balancing our nervous system and helping us to process and work with stress. And adaptogens are also generally safe, but sometimes they have some contraindications or some things that you have to look out for, certain doses that you need to take to be inside of a safe range. But often with adaptogens, you can take them for long periods of time, so they are on that safer end of the spectrum. Then we have plants that are like nervine herbs, sedative herbs, herbs that you may more so be taking in acute situations, right? Like when you get the flu, or when you have some kind of sickness, or when you're having a panic attack or anxiety or something like that. And these have specific dosages. Sometimes there can be more safety concern with certain herbs, so you want to be making sure that you are really working intentionally with these types of plants. Then as we go a little farther on the spectrum, we have our ceremonial herbs, right? We have poke, we have psychedelic plants and cannabis and lobelia and all of these other different kinds of herbs that are often taken in really small dosages. Oftentimes these are herbs that different indigenous communities have worked with for long periods of time, and so they're either herbs that really shouldn't be taken by just regular people because there's no purpose, because we aren't in certain practices or titles or places where that would make sense for us to be engaging in those practices or working with those plants. And also in these categories, there are plants that you really would need to be under the supervision of somebody with a lot of knowledge working with these plants, because you can die from some of them. So those are ones that require a lot of thoughtfulness, a lot of intention, and a deep level of reverence and respect. After ceremonial herbs, this spectrum also isn't necessarily a straight line. Some of these shift and change based on what they are. And for example, I'm thinking about essential oils, because essential oils are generally safe for the most part, but they can also be dangerous and toxic over long periods of time. So one of the things that's important to understand about plants is that plants have hundreds of thousands of compounds that all work together to create this synergistic plant. And then when we ingest the plant, it alchemizes with what's going on in our bodies, and it works together to create a holistic system of healing. So as a basic example of this, think about an apple. On the outside of an apple, you have the skin of the apple, and on the inside, you have all of that sugary, juicy goodness. Well, the skin of the apple contains fiber. So when you take a bite out of an apple, the fiber on the skin of the apple helps your body to break down the sugar in the actual apple. Whereas if you were to just eat the apple with no skin, you're not going to get that fiber and that kind of like mild amount of astringent bitters to help to break down the sugar from the apple. And this is the same thing with essential oils, is that you're extracting certain compounds, the volatile oils that smell really nice and have healing properties from the plant. You're separating that out of the plant. So then that makes the oils very, very potent, which then creates more safety risk. You have to be more careful with the amount you're using. And it also changes the constitution of how the plant is working in your body, because it no longer is in its holistic form. And I am a big proponent of working with plants in their holistic form, because I just think that that usually works so much better. And then I would put in a similar range to the essential oils supplements, because supplements are very similar in that they're kind of like extracted often parts of a plant, and often because of the way supplements are, they aren't necessarily always bioavailable in our body. So we can take supplements, but it doesn't mean that our body's actually able to absorb the nutrients in them. Sometimes they are, but that's just something to consider. And then on the end of the spectrum, we have pharmaceuticals, which has a similar process to essential oils, but much more dangerous, where they're extracting one part of a plant to create a medication. For example, if we think about aspirin, where they had, extracted the part of the willow plant to create aspirin, and now we have these pills. And pharmaceuticals have the highest rate of side effects. They are the least safe of all of these different things. And so it's important to be really cautious with how we work with pharmaceuticals. And there are certain things that pharmaceuticals are super important for, right? Like antibiotics, when we have a bacterial infection that requires antibiotics immediately. Sometimes pharmaceuticals can be overused and cause other issues, but there are a lot of pharmaceuticals that are life-saving and that are really important. And so I think one of the things that's really going to be helpful for us on our learning journey is to just be educating ourselves, because honestly, a lot of times the people providing our healthcare aren't actually fully educated on this holistic worldview, unless you're going to maybe a naturopathic doctor or someone who's practicing in a holistic way. And so what I want for you is to support you in accessing all the wisdom that you need in order to make the most thoughtful choices for your specific body. Let's talk a little bit about the different herbal categories that we're going to be looking at today. So we're going to be talking about tonic herbs, adaptogens, nervines, and sedative nervines. So first we have tonic herbs, and these we talked about a few minutes ago when we were talking about that herbal spectrum. So tonic herbs are close to food. They're generally safe, they're filled with vitamins and minerals, and those are the herbs that I love to work with the most, and I think are the most important ones to work with when you first start working with herbs, especially if you're on other medications, because they're generally very gentle. You can take them over long periods of time, and tonic herbs, because you take them over long periods of time, you often don't notice a real difference until a couple months of working with a tonic herb, because they're really starting to replenish and heal and restore your organs and your body from the inside out. They're not the type of herb that is suppressing things or making you feel less. They're really working to heal the underlying causes of what's happening in your body. And there's all kinds of tonic herbs. So for example, you have a cardiovascular tonic. Those are going to be herbs that are going to be really healing to your heart organs, or what we're going to be working with today, which is nervine tonics. So you're going to be working with tonics that are really good for actually healing and repairing the tissues of your nervous system. So next on our list, which is also next on that spectrum that we went over before, are adaptogen herbs. So adaptogens are also all tonic herbs, and adaptogens are often the roots of certain plants, although there are a few adaptogens that are berries or leaves, and we're going to actually be working with one of those today. Something that's important to know about roots is that when you're working with the root of a plant, you often have to do what's called decocting it, which basically means you have to simmer it for about 30-45 minutes to really extract all the nutrients out of it. So it takes a lot longer of a time than your regular tea, where you just kind of like boil water and let it sit for 5 minutes. So adaptogens are a really magical plant because they often look at what's out of balance in your body and they help to balance it one way or another. So if you have really activated frayed nerves, they're going to help to heal and bring balance. Or if you have these really depleted, exhausted nerves, then they're going to bring more aliveness to your body through healing. So they really work with whatever's happening in your body. Similar to the tonic herbs, adaptogens are also herbs that we take over a long period of time and notice their effects over a long period of time. And they're really good for balancing the body after you've experienced a lot of chronic stress or anxiety. They're really going to help to re-regulate your nervous system and bring your body back into balance. So nervines are plants that often calm the nerves, and they can actually work much quicker. So you could take them and experience them really shortly after you take them, as opposed to with the tonic herbs and the adaptogens that work over a long period of time. Nervines are really supportive for things that are more acute. So a lot of nervines have what's called volatile oils, which is the thing that's in the essential oils when you smell them that makes them smell good. So these are the oils on different plants. So if you cut an orange open and you smell all of that orangey smell that's coming from the skin, those are the volatile oils. So oftentimes nervines are plants that have that really beautiful smell. So for example, lemon balm is a nervine plant that has volatile oils that you can kind of smell right away when you smell it. And these volatile oils often have a really calming effect on our nervous system, which is one of the reasons why nervines work so well for anxiety and stress. So our sense of smell is actually connected to our limbic system in our brain. And the limbic system governs our memory and our emotions. And so when we smell volatile oils, it's actually calming that part of our brain. And when we ingest these volatile oils, they actually ease muscle spasms, they ease muscle tension, and they really start to relax our whole system from the inside out. So nervines are really great for anxiety and insomnia and chronic stress and burnout. They're good for headaches and muscle tension, and they can be really supportive for withdrawing from benzos and benzodiazepine. Obviously, well, maybe not obviously, but benzos are a class of pharmaceuticals that are super, super dangerous. Like those are ones that you do not want to just come off cold turkey. You really need to be working with a healthcare provider because you can get seriously injured or even die from trying to just withdraw from those without support. And they can be really, really hard to withdraw from and very, very painful. And so nervine herbs are a great class of herbs to work with when somebody is withdrawing from benzos and also withdrawing from nicotine or other substances that have a very stressful impact on our bodies when we're withdrawing from them. It's also very, very crucial, and I want to be saying this throughout the video, that as we talked about with the different levels of safety with herbs, it's very imperative that you work with your doctor or your healthcare provider if you're wanting to incorporate new herbs into your diet. In the classes when I'm working with people and I have more of a sense of who you are as an individual and your trauma and how you show up in the world and what you need and the medications you're on, then I can provide really specific information and recommendations. But where this is a video and I don't have all that information about you, it's really important that you're working with a healthcare professional that you trust that can help guide you through choosing the herbs that are going to be right for your specific body, and if you're on medications, to make sure that the herbs you pick aren't going to interfere with any of that. And then lastly, we have our class of sedative herbs, and these are herbs that are deeply, deeply relaxing. And these ones we have to be a little bit more careful with. Sometimes they can have some safety concerns that we just want to be aware of. Some of them you can't take over prolonged periods of time. You use them more in acute situations. And based on the type of anxiety that you have, the sedative herbs they're generally really good for panic attacks and insomnia and things like this. But if you're somebody who has anxiety and the feeling of relaxation triggers you, then I would stay away from sedative herbs. And we're going to talk about herbs that you can use if that is part of your experience. Okay, now let's get into the fun part. Let's talk about some herbs. So the first herb that we're going to talk about is Tulsi. Tulsi is one of my favorite herbs, and at the end of this video, we're gonna make a Tulsi Rose Latte, which is one of my favorite drinks, and I drink it almost every day, and I think that you will love it. So Tulsi is an adaptogen herb. I love Tulsi. It smells so beautiful and so relaxing. It's one of the herbs that we grow here on my farm. I love growing Tulsi. It smells so good. It's something you could grow at your home too. So Tulsi is an adaptogen in the Ayurvedic tradition, and Tulsi is one of the very few adaptogen herbs that we actually work with the leaf and not the root. So it's a really great adaptogen to start out with because you don't have to worry about simmering it for 30 minutes or doing all of these crazy things. You can just use it the way that you would a tea. So Tulsi is a really gentle herb. Its qualities are really uplifting and mildly relaxing, but not sedative. And Tulsi is really good for for chronic stress that overlaps with anxiety and depression. Because of Tulsi's uplifting nature, it's also really good for brain fog and fatigue and memory loss. It really, really shines and is really helpful for all of those things. And it can also be really good for hormonal shifts during menopause. So if you're going through menopause or you know someone else who is, Tulsi would be a great herb to recommend. So plants have different actions, different qualities. Some of them are warming, some of them are really drying, some of them are really moist. And so that impacts our bodies. And so, for example, if you're somebody who has really dry skin or your body tends to be really dry all the time, when you work with drying herbs, they can actually dry you out a lot. So sometimes you want to balance them by incorporating a moistening herb. Tulsi is an herb that can be really warming and drying. So sometimes people like to add another herb to it, like linden, which is also an herb that is really great for anxiety, but it's more moistening. That can be really good to add with Tulsi. And also Milky Oats or oat straw, which is actually one of the herbs we're going to talk about today. So I love Tulsi. It smells so good, it's so beautiful, and it's so sweet. I love working with Tulsi as a plant. So in terms of safety things to consider, it can interfere with blood glucose regulation for people with diabetes. So just make sure if you have diabetes that you're working with your healthcare professional or your doctor and just making sure that this is a safe herb to work with, or maybe if not, then finding another herb that might be a better fit. I just want to do a little side note because, in this video, I'm sharing actually some concepts that are a little bit advanced. This isn't typically what I would share in like a beginner herbalist or trauma healing class, but I really just wanted to give all of this information in one place. So I would love if you could share in the comments below how this is feeling for you. Is it feeling like too much information? Are you loving it? Would you like more information? What's really speaking to you? What's feeling overwhelming or confusing or kind of making your brain shut down? I want to make sure that with these videos and what I'm sharing, it actually feels supportive and helpful to you and not overwhelming. Like you're just like, I don't even know where to begin now. I'm so confused. Like I really want to give you real, potent healing information that actually works, but I want to give it to you in a way that feels empowering and that makes sense to you and it doesn't feel overwhelming. So please just let me know. I would love to hear from you how this is landing for you and what I can do in the future to make these videos feel more supportive. Okay, so the next herb that we're going to talk about is called Milky Oats and also oat straw. These are both from the same plant. So oat straw is kind of like a type of grass, and then the milky oats are the basically grains that grow on the end of the grass. And oat straw is where oatmeal comes from. So it's a food that we traditionally have a lot of practice eating, and it can also be a super medicinal healing herb. And milky oats and oat straw are actually one of my favorite herbs to work with for anxiety and chronic stress and panic attacks. In your body, in your nervous system, you have something that is called a myelin sheath. And so you can think of the myelin sheath like if you're looking at think about your cell phone charger, your cord. So the plastic or that material that's covering the wires inside of the cord is basically what the myelin sheath is. So the myelin sheath goes around the physical nerves of our nervous system, covering them and insulating them. And one of the purposes of the myelin sheath is that it helps our nerves send accurate signals to our brain and to other parts of our body about danger and about safety. And so when this insulation gets degraded or starts to break down or be worn down from chronic stress, our body can't actually send accurate signals through our nervous system of us being safe. And so these signals get all discombobulated, and then our body is registering things that aren't actually danger as danger. And so one of the really beautiful things about oat straw and about milky oats is that they actually physically rebuild and repair the myelin sheath. And so This is a really, really potent and great herb to work with if you have experienced chronic stress, burnout, anxiety, panic attacks, because it's going to physically rebuild the tissues in your nervous system. Milky Oats and oat straw are also filled with a ton of vitamins and minerals, and it's basically like taking a supplement, but better than a supplement. So oftentimes our bodies are also experiencing anxiety and stuff because they're so depleted from the nourishment they actually need. And so oat straw is a really great herb to work with for replenishing these vitamins and nutrients, which can actually help our bodies to feel more grounded and regulated. So when you're working with Milky Oats, when you're working with oat straw, you're gonna prepare it in what is called an infusion. And so what this means is we'll say so with a tea, you boil water, then you pour water over the herbs and let it sit for like 5 to 10 minutes. That's a tea. With an infusion, you boil water, you pour it over the herbs, you let that sit for 6 to 12 hours. That's an infusion. And so the infusion is what you do with leaves and flowers of plants. And then for a decoction, that's when you're working with roots and barks of a plant and you're simmering them in water. So with oat straw, we are going to use the infusion method where you're going to boil a pot of water, and then you're going to have your oat straw in like a glass mason jar, and then you're going to pour the water over that after it's done boiling, and you're going to cover it and let it sit for like 6 to 12 hours and then drink it throughout the day the next day. I usually do this at nighttime, so it'll be ready in the morning. So because it's so filled with minerals, oat straw is also really, really great for building strong hair, nails, and skin. So it's a great herb for really replenishing all these areas of your body. It's really great for anxiety, chronic stress, depression, and it's really good for people who have a debilitating anxiety. And it can be really supportive for withdrawing from nicotine. Milky Oats and oat straw are on the more tonic herb spectrum of nervines, and so it's one of the most gentle and safe nervines to work with. So I really recommend that one as another really great place to start. And I know I just said infusing it and drinking it in the morning. I would actually do it the opposite way at first and drink it at nighttime because it can calm some people down a lot. So just to be able to see the impacts in your own body and see what the best time of day is to drink that for you, I would start with night. So even though oats don't contain gluten, some people who are really, really sensitive to gluten may have a reaction to oat tops or oat straw. So it may not be the best herb to work with if you have celiac disease, and if you have some kind of like gluten intolerance, is also great to check in with your doctor and see if this would be a safe choice for you. Okay, next herb we have is lemon balm. Lemon balm is a nervine. I love lemon balm. It's really great for kids also because it smells so good and it's really delicious. And it's also a nervine that's pretty gentle on the system. So lemon balm is something that's also really good to pair with adaptogen herbs. You could also pair it with your Tulsi because it helps to build resilience in the body over time. And similar to Tulsi, lemon balm also has those qualities of being relaxing and uplifting. Lemon balm is also really great for anxiety and depression, and it helps to restore the overall function of the nervous system over time. So lemon balm is also a really great one for people who have anxiety that affects their digestive system or experience stress-related irritable bowel syndrome, because lemon balm acts on both the digestive system and the nervous system. And lemon balm is also really good for herpes simplex virus. So if you get cold sores, lemon balm is a great herb to work with for that too, especially cold sores that you get that are related to stress. Lemon balm can be a great herb to work with for that. So lemon balm is a plant that's generally safe. It's generally safe for kids. It can affect thyroid hormone levels. So you definitely want to talk to your doctor about using lemon balm if you have a thyroid condition. All right, we're going to go over 2 more herbs. There are so many great herbs to work with for anxiety. For example, like blue vervain is a really great herb to work with if you have anxiety related to headaches or migraines or things like that. There's just so many different kinds of herbs to work with for anxiety and panic attacks and chronic stress. Motherwort, which is great for heart palpitations debilitations and anxiety. There's so many of them. I'm not going to go in depth into a bunch of different herbs because I don't want to overwhelm you. I'm going to share two more, Kava and Nettles. And then in future videos, if you are really interested in learning more about these different kinds of herbs for healing your nervous system and anxiety, I can definitely make more videos covering more of the herbs. So next is Kava. Kava is an herb that is on the stronger, more sedative side of the spectrum. It's definitely one that I would say that you wouldn't use on a daily or regular basis, but it can be really supportive for acute stress or a panic attack or overwhelm. And it can also be really helpful for time periods where if you have times where you are having really intense insomnia, then it can be really good for that too. And just to say, in the future, when we talk more about sedative herbs, along with Kava, California poppy, and passion flower are two other sedative herbs that are also really great for anxiety. Kava is a traditional plant of the Pacific Islands and it is often used by indigenous people in ceremony and in really sacred spaces. And it has a history going back over 3,000 years, so it has a long-term use and it's been around for a really long time. Kava is an herb that will have an immediate relaxation effect. It's a pain reliever, it's a muscle relaxant, and it's a really great remedy for anxiety and nervousness and insomnia. So some of the safety concerns is definitely not something you want to take if you have a history of liver disease or liver issues or imbalances. Definitely not good not for pregnant people or for children. And it does need to be stopped 7 days prior to any anesthesia. One of the cool things about Kava, it's really, really strong and potent, and it's really good for restlessness and anxiety and some of these other things, but it doesn't cause like a dampening of or like a grogginess like some other herbs do. So it's something that you can take while still maintaining your alertness and your awareness and without getting kind of like groggy and sedated. Okay, and so lastly, we're going to talk about nettles. Now, nettles isn't a plant that's often considered something that you would use for anxiety. That's not really something people talk about very often, but the reason that I wanted to bring nettles into this conversation as a plant is because nettles is a tonic herb and it is filled with a lot of really powerful nutrients and minerals, and it's really good for people with low iron. And I think one of the important things to understand with anxiety is that I think we get really used to using herbs or different things to try and suppress it instead of thinking about like, what is the message my body's actually trying to send me? And sometimes one of the messages our bodies can be trying to send us are that we're actually depleted in vitamins and minerals. And when we're depleted in those things, we can get a lot more anxious and be a lot less resilient and able to navigate or manage stress or things we're experiencing. And so I love to work with nettles as a tonic herb, sometimes mixed with oat straw, so that it can really help your body to just be replenished with vital nutrients and minerals so that your body is feeling nourished and well, which will also increase your resilience and your strength and your ability to navigate through this healing journey that you're on. Okay, so now let's make some latte. I invite you to get your journal and your pen ready so you can take down the recipe, and I am really hoping that you can share in the comments with me if you make one of these lattes, how the process was for you and how it impacted your body and thought about it. So the first latte we're going to make is a Kava Rose Latte. For your Kava Rose Latte, you're going to want a can of coconut milk. I use organic coconut milk. You want to have a tablespoon or two of rose petals or dried rose buds. You're going to want a fourth a teaspoon of kava powder, a fourth teaspoon of vanilla powder, or an eighth of a teaspoon of vanilla extract. I use a little dollop of vanilla gel that I have, or paste maybe it is. And then you're also going to have some sweetener, so whether that's honey or maple syrup or agave or whatever you like to use to sweeten. You're going to pour your coconut milk into a pot. And then you're gonna add your rose buds to the pot as well. And you're gonna simmer this on medium-low heat, probably for about 5 minutes. You're just wanting it to get to a slow, low simmer and be warm. After this, you're gonna strain the rose petals out of the coconut milk, and you're gonna strain the coconut milk into a blender. Then you're gonna add your kava, your vanilla powder, and your sweetener. Then you're gonna blend it on high for about 30 seconds until it's nice and frothy. And then you're just gonna pour it into your favorite mug and add some beautiful rose petals to the top. So delicious. That's our beautiful Kava Latte, Kava Rose Latte. So this is so warming, so sweet, so decadent. It's great to drink before bed when you're just starting to wind down, maybe while you're journaling or reading or just starting to allow your nervous system to settle. It's a really, really supportive aid for that. Next, we're going to make our Tulsi Rose Latte. This is one that I drink almost every day. This is your adaptogen latte, so you can drink it for long periods of time. It's going to be super replenishing and nourishing and healing and balancing for your nervous system. So for our Tulsi Rose Latte, you're going to add about 8 to 10 ounces of water into your pot. You're going to use about half tablespoon of Tulsi and just a little pinch of rose petals to pour into there. You're going to just slow simmer it for about 5 minutes or so until it gets hot. Once your tea has simmered and it's warm, you're gonna strain out the Tulsi and rose. You're gonna strain your tea into your cup. And then you're gonna mix in your sweetener. I like to use honey. And then you can add your choice of milk and just mix it up and enjoy. So in my journey, what I did is that I found a therapist. I was working with a therapist. I was on a low dose of Zoloft. I started to explore somatic practice, which was so powerful and healing for me. And I also started to explore herbalism and sound healing. And those three things together, I started practicing consistently and regularly, learning about anxiety, learning about my nervous system, starting to understand what was happening in my body, starting to learn how to listen to my body. And then over time, I was able to slowly wean off the medications once I had these new skills to actually navigate what I was feeling without needing the medications. This is not a quick fix. It's something that takes time, but it is very powerful, and you get to a place where it becomes very sustainable, and then you're actually able to live a life that actually feels really, really nourishing for you. So a big part of this channel is providing you with resources, somatic practices, herbal recipes, food recipes, guided meditation, sound healing, just really all of the different tools and things that you're going to need if you want to go on this journey of weaning off medications or of learning different ways to heal anxiety, chronic stress, fatigue, overwhelm, burnout naturally and through somatic practice. So if that's something you're wanting to do, definitely subscribe to my channel, check out the other videos. Obviously my channel, if you're watching this in 2025, this channel is brand new, so there's not a ton of videos on there, but I'm going to be posting every week. So on Tuesdays, I'm going to post videos that are more educational, but also kind of practice videos. So how to make different herbal remedies, how to work with food as medicine, all like different somatic practices, things like that. I'm going to post on Tuesdays. And then on Thursdays, we're going to have Cocoa Butter Therapy, which is my visual podcast, where we apply cocoa butter. And that one, we are talking more about exploring somatics and healing and all of these different things, and just having like a really intimate chit chat about everything, all things healing trauma. And I hope in the future people will share kind of like different things they're wanting to learn or know about that we can talk about there. And then On my shorts, I'm going to be posting lots of quick somatic practices and things like that that you can just do. So that's what's going to be on the channel. And then, you know, I have a background in facilitating a lot of workshops and programs and classes that I teach here on my farm, but I'm going to be moving some of those online. So if you want to get deeper into practice in the future, I'll have those up on the channel. And then also you can download my Healing from Burnout free. It's a free ebook down below to get a little more information about healing from anxiety and burnout. And I hope this video was really supportive for you in your journey and where you are right now. Healing anxiety really isn't about making our feelings disappear. It's about increasing our capacity to feel safe in our bodies. If this feels like a lot of information, let me know in the comments below. I can slow things down, I can simplify it, or I can even go deeper in future videos. And please just remember, you are not broken. Your body is communicating to you. Your body is so wise and it has all of the information that you need to heal and to be well. You are not alone. You are part of this community and we're going to move through these things together. I hope you have a wonderful day or night and I will see you next time. Bye, loves.